All right, everyone, I guess we're going to get started. Thanks for being here. My name is Kendall Kanoki. I am part of the engineering department, and I am working on overseeing the design of the 2nd Street reconstruction project. So I also wanted to mention that I am a Prospect Hill resident, so I do have a bit more of a vested interest in this project. Live right down the road here. First, I just wanted to thank Pastor Alex Connell and the Bloomington Church of the Nazarene for hosting. Really appreciate it. They have been so helpful. Really appreciate them opening their doors to us. It's really, really nice. I also want to thank the CATS team for being here. They are recording the meeting tonight, and it will be available for review, to listen online, for download, whatever you need. So very thankful for them. I also would like to mention that restrooms are available. If you go out the door, turn left and then right. The women's will be right on the right. The door is open. If you want to make your way to the men's, you have to continue down the hall, turn right, and then there'll be another open door. That's the men's. So feel free to hit those up anytime. There are sign-in sheets at the front. I think everybody saw those when they came in. We also have a voluntary survey from INDOT that just collects demographic information. You don't have to fill it out if you don't want to, but they did ask us to have that here since we are receiving federal funding on this project. And I wanted to kind of go over the structure of the meeting, so I will be giving a bit of an overview presentation on the project just to kind of clarify and present everything that is happening with the project, and then after that, we'll move into kind of a citizen question comment period, so we'll be able to, whoa, thank you. All right, here we go. You'll be able to, if you'd like to make comments, you can come up to the mic, make a comment, ask us questions. If we're able to answer, someone on the team here will be sure to jump in and respond, or we'll just take note of things. And then after that, we'll have more of a one-on-one time, so you can kind of look at the exhibits. You can talk to any one of us on the staff about the project. If you have particular questions about your property or something just, that's very specific and maybe doesn't need to be brought up to the group, we can certainly handle it there. There's also other abilities to leave comments. There is a form online that's been pretty popular. I think I've gotten about 20 people on there, which is great. If you'd like to fill out the form online, or if you know someone who would like to do so, feel free to tell them about that. I have had a couple people call me directly, so feel free to give me a call as well during business hours. I'm happy to take those calls, or you can leave a voicemail. You can also email me. My email is on the project website. So there are a few different options for feedback beyond just this meeting, so if you know other people that want to provide that, let them know. I would appreciate that. Wanted to introduce the project team a little bit. So Neil Copper is also from engineering. He is a part of the team, and then we have the consultant, WSP, right up there. And we have the WSP team right here as well, so they are available to answer questions. And we also have Beth Rosenbarger from planning is here in front as well. So those are kind of the city and consultant representatives as part of the project, so just wanted to let you know about them. And then I will go into the presentation, so we can hit the next slide, Maria. Wanted to give a little background on the project. So why reconstruct 2nd Street? Well, as you know, there was a large hospital here that has closed. You might be familiar with it. And so that closure has been the catalyst for a lot of change in the area. You probably saw there's some other master plans up there that are going on. It's a big project for Bloomington, and what's being called the Hopewell project, Hopewell development, taking the place of that hospital is bringing new adjacent land use and residents to this area, so that is a big thing. This is also a unique opportunity. The city is in ownership of about half the property on the south side of 2nd Street currently. That kind of red area, the approximate hospital redevelopment area, that is all owned by the city currently, which is great because for a roadway reconstruction project, we don't have to go and acquire right-of-way from property owners. It's actually already the city owned, so that is very helpful. This is also an old road. You're probably familiar. I mean, the infrastructure on this road is very aged. It is old, and it is also an important corridor. It's a primary arterial. It carries a lot of traffic. It carries a lot of pedestrians. It is definitely a big road for Bloomington and the community. And also, federal funding was awarded for this project, so that is great as well. If you want to go to the next slide, we have a few adjacent projects that are influencing the design. So the big one, of course, is the Hopewell redevelopment. This is the master plan. There's a lot of different moving parts with that project. There's, other streets involved as well, but 2nd Street is kind of the northern border of that project area. So that master planning effort is definitely a part of this project, and there was a big master plan put together for that. If you want to go to the next slide, we also have, of course, I would like to mention building trades. They are working on a master plan for building trades as well. I think they're working on a final plan for public release. They've had a few meetings about the park, so I just wanted to kind of plug that project as well. It's directly adjacent to the road, and we certainly want to support that project in any way possible. I did want to mention, I don't have a slide for it, but Bloomington Transit runs buses along this corridor. We have been coordinating with them. They have a big Transform Bloomington Transit strategic plan that's kind of guiding a lot of the decisions that they're making as part of, moving forward as a transit agency, so we definitely are supporting those. And this project was also prioritized by the Bloomington-Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. So that is just another factor in this project. And because of their prioritization, we were able to get some federal funding, which City Council in 2022 prioritized the project and provided matching local funding for that federal funding. So that kind of was able to get all the pieces to come together for that. If you'd like to go to the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about the existing conditions of the roadway. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with it, but this is a snapshot of the roadway as it currently exists. As you can see here, there's a lot of, you can see the old hospital site and a lot of the infrastructure and driveway cuts that were provided for the old hospital site that are no longer needed. Let's go to the next slide. We have traffic signals at Rogers and Walker as part of 2nd Street, and these are older traffic signals, and they are in need of replacement. So that is something that we are going to go ahead and do as part of this project. Go to the next slide. Storm sewer infrastructure. So 2nd Street is kind of that big line in the middle. You can see that near Rogers there is some storm sewer infrastructure, but elsewhere along the corridor there is nothing currently. So that's something we want to take a look at for sure. If you want to go to the next slide. This is a snapshot of some of the water main infrastructure in the area, and I have that area kind of boxed. That water main was actually installed in 1893 and is still in operation, so built to last, but we definitely are looking at doing some upgrades on the water main infrastructure in the area. Next slide, please. I did just want to kind of show this shot. It's not really a comfortable route for anybody who's on a bicycle or e-bike, scooter, that kind of thing, just with the way the roadway is currently laid out. If you want to go to the next slide. The old hospital has left a lot of unneeded infrastructure. There's driveways, there's kind of areas where turn lanes were provided, what road was widened for the hospital, and of course all those are now taken out, so that's something that we wanted to look at. Next slide, please. Transit stops currently are kind of just grass areas along the side of the road there, so we'll definitely be looking at those bus stops and, of course, the sidewalk itself and the condition of it. If you want to go to the next slide. Then we do have some site constraints. There are many constraints, but one of them is the retaining walls along the north side here. So we're definitely trying to think about and work around all of those kinds of constraints for the project. If you go to the next slide, Maria. Goals of reconstruction. So I know you're not supposed to put a big giant list of things on PowerPoint, but here we are. I thought it would be nice to at least list the things so you can see them yourself, but modernize the traffic signals is the first step here of what we're looking to do. Update utilities, so we want to definitely install a proper storm sewer drainage system and replace the aging water main, also look at some other utilities, sewer, old service connections, things like that. We want to utilize the corridor to most effectively serve all road users, so that includes vehicles, transit, city services, emergency responders, bicycles, scooters, e-bikes, pedestrians, whatever the future brings in terms of that. We definitely want to provide comfortable pedestrian infrastructure that's meeting the latest accessibility standards, so that includes curb ramps and the sidewalks themselves. And we want to ensure continued conveyance of vehicle traffic and emergency services as the road handles now. And we definitely want to support transit. And part of that is accessible bus stops and just making sure that we are fitting in with the goals of the transit agency itself. Let's see. And we also want to make sure we're supporting the Hopewell redevelopment, the Building Trades Park master planning, existing neighborhoods, the existing businesses along the corridor. So those are kind of the goals. Design started in 2022, late 2022. So we've been working through kind of the preliminary and first level of design. If you go to the next, oh, you're already there. Okay, so I wanted to kind of go into now the design elements of the project. These are kind of the guidance documents. So there's kind of the first three are very high level. There's the MPO documents and the city's comprehensive plan. But these kind of spell out what the cities and the counties, the community as a whole goal are when it comes to transportation and projects like this. So they identify general priorities. There are many priorities listed in all of those plans, but all three specifically call out for corridors to accommodate all users in the transportation system. So we're definitely considering that when we look at this project. The city's transportation plan is a really great document because it identifies block by block what the city's goals are for transportation for that corridor. So 2nd Street is no exception. These particular blocks are listed in that plan. It's a 2019 plan. Went through a lot of public input, a lot of public departments, city departments. And so we can look and see exactly what was identified for this corridor. There's also state and federal guidance that we look at, so agencies such as INDOT, Federal Highway, AASHTO, NACTO, things like that when you get into the design. So just wanted to mention those. You can go to the next slide, Maria. So this is the cross-section that's identified in the transportation plan for this type of corridor. So 2nd Street is identified as a general urban street, and it calls for a 90-foot right-of-way. Now, I've put on there for reference, the existing right-of-way that we're working with is between 60 and 66 feet. So you can kind of get an idea of what the goals are in the transportation plan and the constraints that we are working with here. One of our goals is obviously to minimize impacts on adjacent property owners. So we definitely have to prioritize, parts of that cross-section that we can fit into the right-of-way that we have and minimize those impacts. So if you want to go to the next slide. This is kind of the proposed cross-section. This is what was sent out with the mailers. And this is kind of what we've come up with. Obviously cross-sections vary across the corridor, but this is kind of a general cross-section to give you an idea of what we're thinking in terms of design. So we're incorporating the elements of the transportation plan. You can see on here we've got vehicle travel lanes, we have protected bike lanes, we have buffer space, we have sidewalks. And just wanted to note, this does widen out at the intersections for additional turn lanes and things like that. But what you're probably noticing is if you go back to the previous slide, there are a couple things absent. One of those things is parking. And parking is not currently permitted. It's actually not permitted in this area in the Bloomington Municipal Code. And we're also trying to minimize impacts to adjacent property owners. So at this time, we're not really looking at adding any parking along this road. We may look at, I showed you there was a part of the project where the city owns the adjacent property. We may look at something in that area, but currently parking, it helps us to fit into that existing right-of-way. So you don't see that. And then also, you probably noticed there's full 10-foot sidewalks on each side here. That's kind of the ideal, but again, we're working in a smaller right-of-way, so I will go into a bit more detail about what we decided with sidewalks, but we're not maintaining the full 10 feet on either side throughout this project just because of right-of-way constraints there. So if you'd like to go ahead a couple slides, Maria. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to go through each element. So the first being the vehicle travel lanes. There are no changes proposed to the current number of vehicle travel lanes or the turning lanes that signalize intersections. So where we have, left turn lanes, right turn lanes, travel lanes, all that stays the same. There's actually a lot of wasted space right now in the cross-section of the roadway, so we are trying to take better advantage of it, but we are not changing the number of lanes. Lane widths, we are proposing to be 11 feet each. This is something we coordinated with Bloomington Fire Department and Bloomington Transit. They're kind of our largest roadway users from a public agency standpoint. So we definitely are also looking to accommodate some truck traffic. So 11 feet was kind of what we landed at there. Street intersections and drives are designed to accommodate truck turning movements and emergency vehicles. So we're definitely looking at all the intersections and all the private drives to make sure that can be accommodated. And we're also just looking at potentially some kind of areas where we have like a raised truck apron so that we can accommodate larger vehicles but also encourage slower speeds when doing turns. We've done that some other places of the city. We're looking into it. We haven't decided exactly what we're doing there yet. But that's kind of the vehicle travel lane section. If you want to go to the next slide. Protected bike lanes. So I wanted to provide a little bit more context. If you go to the next slide, this here is kind of showing the bike network around this project area. You can see the B-line there, and you can also see we have a multi-use path along 2nd and Bloomfield that goes all the way across I-69 to the southwest. That's kind of that green line there. In blue, I've actually identified some other projects that are going on, which is kind of cool. So the county is doing the Karst Farm Greenway Connector, which is that one in the southwest corner there, and that's going to connect our multi-use path along Bloomfield with the Karst Farm Greenway, which is an existing trail there. And then the county is also designing the Vernal Pike Path Project, which is that other blue line in the northwest corner. And that is going to connect with an existing path that is along Vernal Pike 17th Street, which is that green line. And then we actually just bid out a project, the city, the B-line Connector Project, which will connect the 17th Street path with the end of the B-line. So if you look here, this 2nd Street project is kind of the last piece of that puzzle for if you wanted to do a full loop between the Karst Farm Greenway and the B-line and kind of connecting all into the rest of our bike ped infrastructure in the city. So this is kind of supporting a piece of that larger puzzle. If you want to go to the next slide, Maria. So for those reasons, this was kind of a prioritized by planning because of these elements. This supports not only recreation, but also people commuting into the city, connectivity, providing, safe bicycle infrastructure. The transportation plan, as you saw, does call for protected bike lanes on this corridor. So that's the reason we were moving forward with those. Wanted to kind of talk about the alignment here. So we're looking at 2 5-foot lanes, 10-foot total width, median separation from vehicles, and of course the Rogers and 2nd signal will also have a bicycle traffic signal on it, which is pretty cool. And we went with 2-way on the north side of the road. Reason for this is you've got that multi-use path already on 2nd Bloomfield that's on the north. So it kind of made sense to continue that through this corridor rather than making cyclists cross for a section and then join up with the B-line. The separation here of bikes and peds allows for a more comfortable experience for both users. So you can see the peds have the sidewalk there and the separated bike lanes. And this, of course, the protected bike lane can also be used by scooters, e-bikes, all those kinds of things. So that's the protected bike lane portion. If you want to go to the next slide, pedestrian facilities, I wanted to touch base on that. So we wanted to maintain the existing sidewalk widths at a minimum that were already there. So in some places we have 5-foot walk, some places we have 6-foot walk along this corridor. We want to maintain that. We want to repair damaged sections and replace any section that's not currently PROAG compliant. So we definitely want to fix that. We wanted to protect those existing retaining walls I showed. Now, where we own property adjacent to the road, we wanted to go ahead with the full transportation plan, the 10 feet that's called for the side paths. So we are going to be doing the 10-foot wide walk on the old hospital site, which is nice. And we also wanted to support the Building Trades Park project, so we are proposing a mid-block crossing for in front of the park currently. And then we're also looking at the Beeline crossing, looking at what improvements we can make there, and then curb ramps, did want to mention, replacing any non-ProAg compliant curb ramps. If you want to go to the next slide. Bus stops, I mentioned this a couple times, but we want to support the BT strategic plan. Primarily, this project is supporting strategy 4.5, which I kind of have shown up there, improve bus stops and first last mile connections. So we want to support that. We are spacing these bus stops per Bloomington Transit guidance, and we are providing barrier-free design for level bus boarding. So these stops, you'll actually be able, if you're in some kind of a wheelchair or something, you can go right onto the bus. The bus does not need to come down to the road to pick you up, which is really great. If you want to go to the next slide, I want to touch base on just utilities. I'm really interested in utilities. Most people probably aren't, but we got new traffic signals meeting all current best practices going in, drainage improvements. Now, not only does this help the drainage of the roadway, but there's a lot of neighborhood streets that drain onto 2nd Street. So this also helps with those neighborhood streets that adjoin the roadway. Water main replacement, I mentioned, is definitely going to happen as part of this project. And we are also looking at removing utility services that previously served the old hospital site. And then, of course, we'll look at other utilities like the sanitary sewer, take advantage of this time to do any upgrades to that. I wanted to mention street lighting as well. We're looking at fixing any current gaps in the street lighting, replacing old poles, burying services, that kind of thing. Those poles are very old out there currently. And then we're trying to get the fiber folks to come in before we do so they don't tear up our brand new project like they did over on 17th. So if we can get that coordinated, that'll be great too. Get the fiber in there. If you want to go to the next slide, Maria. So these are the illustrative plans. We also have these on the wall so you can kind of, after the meeting, take a closer look, but I did want to kind of go through them. Wanted to be clear that these are still being developed, so this isn't, the 100% going out to bid drawings. We're at about 60% right now. But wanted to give you an idea of the current plan. There may be some tweaks, but I just wanted to go kind of from west to east, starting with the Walker and 2nd Street intersection, which is on the left-hand side, and kind of just go over some of the aspects there. So kind of on the west side here, we have our transition from the multi-use path to the protected bike lane. We're still working out exactly how that'll look, but kind of the latest iteration is up there for you to take a look at. But somehow the cyclists and peds on that path will be transitioning to separated sidewalk and protected bike lane section there. As you can see, there's going to be a new traffic signal at Walker, existing turn lanes and everything maintained there. And you can see sidewalk improvements in the green buffer space between the protected bike lane and the road, and then also access to the existing roads and alleyways, driveways as well. I think that's it for this one. If you want to go to the next slide, Maria. So this here is kind of getting towards Building Trades Park. You can see we've got the mid-block crossing there for crossing from the south to the north in front of the park. We also, on the bottom there, are getting into the Rogers intersection. So again, new traffic signal there. This starts the city-owned property. So you can see on the south side the 10-foot path maintained along the south. You can see the protected bike lane on the north and the travel lanes and turn lanes for the intersection remaining there. If you want to go to the last slide, Maria. So this is kind of the section where we converge in with the Beeline. So of course the protected bike lane will have to join in with the Beeline. This is kind of tough because of the Morton intersection. It's very close to the Beeline. So making sure that we kind of do that right. And we're also, of course, looking at the Beeline crossing. That's a busy pedestrian crossing there. So maintaining that refuge island and potentially looking at other improvements for that, still to be determined. And then resurfacing, extending all the way to College. But we're not really changing anything between the Beeline and College on this project there. So that's kind of a very general overview of the plans. Again, they're over here for you to take a look at after the meeting. So I think just to give you a heads up on the format moving forward, so if you have any questions, you can come up and ask the question. That way Cats can kind of record that, but we are also able to come to you with the mics. These are wireless mics. So if you'd like to just say something from your seat, you can kind of get our attention and we can come over and meet you there, no problem at all. But if you'd like to ask questions, we can do our best to answer. You know, I have folks from the city here and the consultants. If you'd like to just make comments as well, we'll take note of those, of course. And so, you know, it depends on how many people that want. Can I get a round of hands? Who would like to make some comments or ask some questions coming forward? Okay. I think we have enough time. I just, you know, maybe like try to keep it less than 5 minutes just out of respect for everybody's time and everything. We'd appreciate that, but I think we'll have time to get to everybody. But afterwards, we'll all be available for one-on-one question and answer, so we can definitely do that. And of course, the exhibits are up there, so let's see, anything I forgot? I don't think so. Did I forget anything? Project website. If you go to City of Bloomington Engineering, click on current infrastructure projects, you'll see West 2nd Street listed as one of the projects. So that is the website. Anything else I forgot? Okay, well, if someone would like to come up and start, any volunteers? Would you like to come, or if you're able to? I'm just going to turn on this mic here. Hello. Yeah, if you'd like to just talk in the mic, and feel free to introduce yourself.
Okay. Oh, I'm Ron Brown. I'm representing the Bloomington Bicycle Club. And this project puts a protected bike lane on the north side of West 2nd Street between the Beeline Trail and South Walker Street. This completes the 2nd Street side path that runs from the Beeline to the Bloomfield Road Bridge over I-69. It's already been mentioned that Monroe County is just now beginning work on its Karst Farm Park Trail extension. That will put the bike ped trail from the Karst Farm Park to the Bloomfield Road Bridge. When these current projects are completed, there will be a bike ped trail from the Beeline to the Karst Farm Park Trail. With that in place, individuals will want to make it easier to cross I-69. Now, crossing the bridge requires crossing 8 high-traffic crosswalks. The Karst Trail extension was originally part of a proposed project that would cross I-69, encountering no crosswalks. It would do this by tunneling through 2 ramps. The ramp tunnel plan was presented to the Bloomington Plan Commission on November 18, 2018. It was approved for inclusion in the Bloomington Transportation Plan. This project on the east end of West 2nd Street contributes to what will be a major bike ped route.
Thank you, thank you. Whoever would like to go next, feel free to make your way up.
I'm Sarah Ryderband. I've never had a problem bicycling on 2nd Street, and I'm an old lady. Nonetheless, I appreciate the fact that you're going to try and protect people who may be less crazy than I am. What I want to know is a couple of things. One is, this is land on the south side that is owned by the city of Bloomington. And I've certainly noticed that it's not being cared for. During the recent snow, none of that snow was removed from any of that land, and some of us walk on the streets. And as pedestrians, I believe not only is there an ordinance, but we deserve to be safe. So I'm wondering what the city is doing to care for their property. There's also at the moment, a huge dark space that goes from the alley just south of Maple, no, just east of Maple, and goes all the way down to Rogers on that south side of the road. None of those lights work until you get to Rogers. It is dark, and if you're walking at night in that area, it's rather frightening. Again, if this belongs to the city, what's the city doing to help us with the light situation? One of the places that inevitably I see traffic as someone who lives on 2nd Street back up is turning south when you get to the health net. And traffic backs up considerably. So I've noticed that we don't keep a two-way turn anywhere within this project except at the major intersections. So how do you anticipate that we're actually going to make that less of a snarl, much less if indeed you have an emergency vehicle trying to get through that area? We're back to 2 lanes with nowhere for cars to pull off. How exactly are we addressing that situation? There are also drainage issues, which I've been mentioning for years to Andrew. So I'm delighted that at the base of Morton on 2nd, that we're finally going to deal with what tends to be a small lake. That's great, but there are a few issues, and probably more, that need to be addressed in this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I guess I can respond to a few things that I took note of. The snow removal, I will definitely look into. I'm not sure who's responsible for that, but I'm definitely going to try to find out. The lighting, again, we are trying to fix those lighting gaps as part of this project. And emergency vehicles, we are coordinating with Bloomington Fire Department. They are in full agreement with the design currently. So working through that, and then I can get with you after to make sure I covered everything you said. Thank you for your comment. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Dave Huber. I went to IU, and I'm a homeowner in Prospect Hill, and I walk, bike, and drive here in Bloomington. Really excited about this project. I just want to throw in my 2 cents on user experience. I'm a user experience designer, work in tech, and when I look at the project goals, there are a lot of great functionality requirements in there, improving the lights, making things functional from a utility perspective, and that's excellent. I would love to see at the top of that list create a wonderful walking and biking experience in Bloomington, because I think as the world continues to change, people want to live in great cities that you can walk and bike in easily. I think it'll be a given that it'll be easy to drive down the road. What does it look like to have a beautiful walking and biking experience? And if that's on the list, then maybe some of the things like lighting or art or places to sit become a bigger priority. And so I think that'd be great to see that prioritized more in this project. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Mallory. I live right across from Building Trades Park, and I just wanted to I guess I'm echoing that kind of in a specific way of I'm curious about what the vegetation situation, we can see green. I'm curious, are y'all planning to work with I know we have some native plant little medians that are nice, and I like those. And then also, I was curious about the street lights, if you know what kind of street lights those would be because there are some really pretty ones on the Beeline, I know, and I love those. But I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will respond briefly. What is shown in green is planned on being something vegetated, and it has to be from the city's approved list, which is all native plantings. And in terms of lighting, I'll have to get back to you. It's going to be LED lighting, but I don't know if we're doing anything more aesthetic than that, so I'll have to find that out for you. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Sam Dixon. I live a few streets away in McDowell Gardens. I just want to say I think the project is looking like it's heading in the right direction. I love seeing pedestrian islands to protect people who need to cross the street. I love seeing the protected bike lanes. Again, fixing the lighting and the drainage. That'll all help with safety, which I think is the ultimate goal. And so I just want to say keep going in that direction. two little suggestions I have that I'd like to ask for would be at the B-line crossing, some vertical deflection. So when we're crossing on the B-line as pedestrians, we're not at threat of people trying to zoom in there and get in front of you. I've had way too many close calls. And then also on the Second and Rogers intersection, the turn lanes, I know you're working with limited space, but they're pretty shallow, so they're kind of like slip lanes. People turn really fast there, especially coming down the two hills. So that's a bit scary, and I suggest the crosswalks could be shorter if you're working those corners out. That's all. Really appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Eoban Binder. I live on House Street, so right around the corner from this project. I think it's definitely looking like it's moving in the right direction, so I'd agree with some of the other commenters about that. Nevertheless, I guess I have several questions and maybe some suggestions too. So one question I would have would be, what is the actual design speed of this new design, street design? Because I know that it's currently signed to 30 miles per hour, and obviously the current configuration is kind of ridiculous with such wide lanes and everything, but I would be curious to know what the actual design goal there is in terms of speed, whether it's something we're looking for, 25 miles an hour, or maintaining 30 miles per hour. That's one question.
25 miles per hour is
Okay.
the design speed.
Yeah, just curious about that. I was wanting to ask, or maybe get a little more clarification about the bus stop locations. It's a little unclear to me from the drawings, because it seems like there's a pair of bus stops, going each direction at Walker, and then also over closer to the Beeline Trail. But currently there are an additional 2 pairs of bus stops that are in the middle that are not depicted, as far as I could tell, in the drawings. So I'd just be curious to know if those are still planned to be included, or if we're consolidating 4 bus stops in each way to just 2, or somewhere in between.
Yeah, so it's just the 2, and that was direction given by Bloomington Transit for
Okay.
their route optimization. And I do believe Zach Hunick with BT is here tonight. Yep, if you'd like to get further information on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so I think the previous commenter mentioned vertical deflection. I think they were referring to like traffic calming, raised intersections, and that sort of thing, raised crossings. I would absolutely encourage the city to pursue that where possible, maybe particularly in high-risk areas, maybe the mid-block crossing in front of the park, budget permitting, Rogers or Walker would be wonderful too. Or really anywhere we can manage it, because raised crossings are proven to significantly improve pedestrian safety and reduce traffic speeds. Another thing I wanted to mention or ask about, I guess, is if there's any kind of signalization or lights like pedestrian hybrid beacons or RRFBs or anything like that, hawk signals, that are planned to be used, like at the mid-block crossing or anywhere else, like at Euclid or Maple?
Currently, we are not planning on incorporating any, correct?
Okay,
We haven't yet. Okay.
I would strongly suggest that the city consider a PHB. And I realize that that's, more complex and more money into the project, but an RRFB at the very least, for anyone that's not familiar with the lingo, an RRFB is, an example is at 4th and Rogers, like at Rainbow Bakery, that's an RRFB, I believe. And a hawk beacon or a PHB, I think is maybe more the technical term. There's one on South Walnut crossing from the neighborhood over to the park where the traffic actually stops. Okay, Kendall, I heard you mention earlier that you were trying to accommodate buses and truck traffic and fire trucks and that sort of thing. Which sounds like, I guess I get the impression it's kind of a blanket statement from what I'm hearing. And obviously, the kind of accommodation you would want at Second and Rogers might be very different from like an alleyway or a drive cut, for example. So I appreciate a little more clarification on exactly, in what context we're trying to accommodate like big truck traffic, because I look at some of these separations for the two-way bike path, and I feel like they are in some cases are kind of unnecessarily wide turn radius. But, I'm not an engineer, so I just wanted to kind of point that out, that I do feel like we don't always need to be accommodating a, 50-foot ladder truck in every possible situation, that there's occasionally like somebody's private driveway probably doesn't need a ladder truck to go in it, And then I also noticed on the drawing there's an unmarked mid-block crossing just west of the main park crossing, and I was just wondering what that was, or if that was just not really sure what that was about.
Yeah, I can shine. So there are some proposed streets as part of the Hopewell development. So that's actually going to be a street joining in with Second Street. And when we have streets that intersect another street, we provide curb ramps on both sides. So one side will have the refuge island, the other side does not. But we provide them on either side because they're legal crosswalks.
Okay, I might want to talk to you after this to get some
Sure,
more
we can talk about that more.
Yeah. Trash pickup. I'm not one of the property owners on Second Street. I live on Howe, but I have noticed that in other cases, for example, the 7 line, there's a number of private property owners along there with trash pickup, and I thought the city did a pretty good job coordinating with them and instructing and providing like designated places for their bins to go. So I would just request that the city make sure to do that here too, because otherwise the bins are just going to wind up wherever, like in the bike lane or on the sidewalk or whatever. And if there's a...
You just have 5 minutes, just so you know.
Sorry, okay. I have
If you could wrap it up, please.
other suggestions too, but I'll talk to you afterwards.
Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Dave Correa, and I'm a student. I live on West First Street, right behind Kroger, basically. And just 2 things. I just wanted to echo, actually, before I forget, the earlier gentleman's comment about safety, I think would be a great thing. I was just, on the Beeline Trail especially, I was just kind of like, I just had a close call the other day when I was walking around, so I just wanted to mention that. And I have a question, a number of questions, actually, about and I hope this is the right place to ask about the construction that's happening right now, right off of 2nd Street. So they are really, really kind of loud early in the morning, and I know that they're not supposed to start work, before I think 7:30 they can start staging and everything. So I've mentioned this in several emails to the city, but they keep doing it, and I'm close enough where it's super, super loud. So I just wanted to know if you had any information about that, and also maybe a time frame. And that all being said, this is the first time I'm kind of learning more about the project, which sounds really exciting and like a really good thing. So thank you all.
Yeah, I will definitely look into the sound thing for you. I don't know anything personally, but I will try to see what's going on with that. So,
Cool, thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Meyer. I'm a West Side resident and an IU staff member, and I just want to say that I appreciate the attention to more complete streets, separated bike lanes. I'm also a cyclist. I intend to cycle to work a lot more, and connecting those paths from Karst to the city is very, very important. And as you go forward, please consider other ways to connect to existing bike infrastructure and keep Bloomington safer and more attractive to all kinds of folks that need to get around, not only in vehicles, I also drive. So more complete streets. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Don Weiler. Own property in Prospect Hill along 2nd Street on the north side. Question about utility improvements. So I appreciate the fact that the older infrastructure is going to get replaced. My understanding is that the sewer main running down 2nd Street is of the old clay material. And wondering, so one question is that going to get replaced as well and upgraded? And then the second question is just about utility connections from properties to that main. That typically falls on the homeowners to make those connections and to upgrade those connections when they, require permits and things like that, which replacing those typically involves digging up the street. So the question is, in terms of the scope of upgrading the water and the sewer mains, will that mean that those will also be improved to the property lines to prevent a beautiful new Second Street being torn up in small fashion here and there in the future?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, good questions. Utilities is looking at the sewer line. They've informed me the water main is going to be replaced. I don't know about the sewer line yet. They're looking at all their utilities in that corridor. So I haven't heard about the sewer line, but I can follow up with them to see. I don't know if they're going to replace the services, like reconnect them in the road to the main, or if they're going to replace them to the meters. They've done both in the past. So I'm going to have to check with them on that one as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kenneth Cisco. Represent Merriam's and Walnut House Flowers and Gifts. A couple of questions I actually have for this is, what are your plans for the north side and the businesses that actually reside there? Because from the way this looks nice, but if you put this to scale with everything in blueprints, to be able to put in double bike lanes and be able to stretch out 90 feet, looks like it's going to wind up coming into our parking lot and affecting our business. And it's not just ours on that. You got spa, you got the lawyer's office, all those homes. As a historical standpoint, you have 100-year-old walls that you're going to have to go into. And then what about the additional congestion? With putting in the islands and everything, it's great, it's nice. Fire trucks can't get around that. Big semis can't do it either. We've had this problem in the past, especially going down over on the east side of town. I think it's great to put in the bike lanes. It's a hell of a lot safer, and you can be able to get around people. But I'm just kind of curious about those.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So the right-of-way, we are actually working predominantly within the existing right-of-way, so we are not acquiring right-of-way on most of the parcels on the north side. I think there's a few like intersection corners where we are, but we are not pushing the right-of-way line generally north, so those walls remain in place. Everything remains as is, so we're not getting into those properties actually at all with any permanent improvements. In terms of the roadway and the turning movements and the median between the bike lanes and the road, we have two 11-foot lanes, and then we are looking at turning movements at the intersections and drives, so making sure that those vehicles can get around. We're definitely looking at all of that, so thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is YYan. First of all, thank you very much for working on this project. So I sometimes ride with my kids, and in most of the town, I need to constantly think about how they can be killed, potentially. So I really welcome protected bike lane. I think this may be somewhere I can ride with kids, and potentially kids can ride by themselves. I never tried attempt to ride on the second street with the kids. So I really welcome protected bike lane. But I was wondering about the trees, because usually pedestrians doesn't crash into houses in high speed, but cars can crash into bikes or pedestrians in high speed. But the trees are between pedestrians and houses, not cars and vulnerable users. So I was just wondering about trees. And I think it's really great because protected bike lane means it will induce way more people to ride bikes. And that means less traffic and fewer cars and more, even if I drive, it will be better to drive. So that will be nice. And I really appreciate the whole east-west connection that it will kind of complete. And that means even if I'm living on the east side, I can just take the 7 line, go to B line, take down, and then take this to go to the west side. And that like really opens up the whole city. And I really also appreciate pedestrian islands, kind of slow zigzagging structure. I think it can make the road much safer. And several questions I have is like, there was a large-scale study from Johns Hopkins recently that narrowing the road really make it safer. So I have no idea whether the width is narrow or wide, but I was just curious about it. And also another thing I was wondering is that there's a protected intersections where there's a kind of protruded island that like semis or fire truck can just pass through, but protecting pedestrians and bikes so that because the car should come out a lot to turn. So I'm wondering whether there is any possibility to have that kind of protected intersections. And regarding signals, I was wondering, can there be signals that default to pedestrians and bikes rather than just kind of prioritizing cars? Because if you ride bike, you probably know that it's really kind of annoying and difficult to stop and go. If you can ride without stopping, it's like so much better. So I was wondering whether there will be any kind of more intelligent, smart signals. And I would like to echo a lot of what's being said here. Whenever I take B-line to like go south, there's a kind of, when I hit the second street, that's the most precarious place because cars don't necessarily slow down. So I would really appreciate to have some more traffic calming over there as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Colin Nielsen. I really like the design of this second street. I like all the improvements that are being made to it. It reminds me a lot of the 7 line, which I use practically daily, and I imagine I'll use this quite often as well, especially to get to some of the businesses that I like around where B-Dubs is. So I also, I think it's also very smart to include more transportation alternatives for an area where there's going to be a lot of redevelopment with dense housing, because with dense housing comes traffic. So if you provide bike lanes, that'll hopefully alleviate some of the car demand. Also, I was actually going to ask about those transit stops as well, because I did notice that there was only one transit island when there were like 3 or 4 stops there originally, but now I have my question answered. But I did want to suggest that perhaps I noticed that the 4 line goes through there, and I believe the 2 line also comes nearby the area. Because there's also going to be new development, I think that it could be worth looking into making the transit more frequent. I don't know if that means creating a new line or just adjusting it so that like there's 15-minute headways for the existing transit lines. But I think that's also important to again alleviate traffic and provide alternative modes, because there are some days when biking is like when it reached -1 degrees, and with a wind chill of -15, it just did not work out. But so days like that are where transit becomes essential. Let's see. I was also going to ask about the section between the B line and College Avenue, because it looks like it's going to be repaved, but it doesn't have any bike infrastructure on it. And I was And I'm aware that the city is looking into the College and Walnut Corridor study, and protected bike lanes is a big consideration for that study. So I'm just thinking that there's about a block between the B line and College Avenue that will essentially have no bike infrastructure, but there will be, supposedly there will be a protected bike lane down College and Walnut. And so I just think that, I don't know if maybe you can delay repaving that or already put protected bike infrastructure in there for this plan, but just so that you don't waste money trying to redevelop it afterwards, because I think it'll be a very important connection between the College and Walnut corridor to have that 2nd Street connection. Otherwise, you just have one block of nothing, and that can be really jarring for cyclists. Though I do like that it connects with the B line. But yeah, I think that's an important consideration. And maybe since the College and Walnut corridor development might just happen in a few years, maybe it might just be worth to delay repaving that, because then you'll just have to redevelop it again, and that will waste money. So yeah, I think.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Erin. Erin Toby. I live on 2nd Street, right between Maple and Euclid. So I think I'm one of the only homeowners that actually has like a driveway and a garage that goes onto 2nd Street. I really support the project. I think this is really awesome, and I really appreciate still keeping our driveway. we pulled like a cement mixer in there before, which we don't ever plan to do again. But just having those big I know Aobon was questioning the radiuses. Don't take away my chance to put a tree trimmer in my driveway. Just kidding. I was inspired to get up because Aobon mentioned the idea of adding, a problem is our trash trolleys end up in the street. They get turned over. Our neighbors have had them run into. The idea of, I felt so passionately about the idea of including, just really considering where the trash trolleys are gonna live. I really support that. It would really solve a problem that I bet Sarah also, I know that you're on 2nd Street maybe also, though I don't know if you get picked up on the side. Okay. So I just really feel passionately about that, and I think that's a great idea. Everything looks great with the project. I also have the same feeling about how can my child get hurt. I'm thinking of all the different ways. And so any opportunity to slow and calm traffic, like around with the crossing at the park, between the park and Hopewell, I really like the idea of a signal that a pedestrian could, like at Rainbow. I understand that that's more problematic as when you're talking like somewhere in the middle of the hill. We would cross at Maple Street often to kind of like squiggle through the hospital to get to like 1st Street to walk down to the B line that way if we were going south. But I think we'll be happy going down to the park to cross. That's no problem. But yeah, just thinking about opportunities to cross and ways to do that safely will be very welcome by all the people with little kids who plan on getting them on bikes. And that's it. Thank you very much. One question I have was timeline. When is this construction currently slated to be happening, and how long do you propose, or how long do you predict it might take? And thank you.
Thank you very much. Currently, 2025 is when we plan on starting construction. Wish I could give you a month and a day, but I can't. And I'm gonna say a year, but does that sound reasonable? I think about a year. Yeah, still got to work out all the staging and phasing and everything, but probably about a year total of construction. Go ahead, come up.
Quick question, a quick comment. Okay. So the comment is, if you've ever ridden the B line with an energetic 10-year-old grandson, their perception of a safe crossing and your perception of a safe crossing are totally different. So I would just like to say, as much safety as you can build into those crossings, think in terms of a 10-year-old sometimes. Maybe, you might come up with some more ideas. And I know I only have one question, because I know I'm going to get asked this question. Are the dimensions and the specs on the width of the bicycle lanes and the traffic lanes, are they the same specs that you used on 7th Street?
No, so 7th Street has 10-foot travel lanes, and we're doing 11-foot on this project. I think the 7 line in many places is 10 feet, but may go down to 8 feet in some places. Neil, generally 10. Neil's nodding yes.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
And
a
I don't know about the width of the median.
Yeah, I'm a bike rider, and I think bike lanes on 7th are a little bit too wide, and the traffic lanes are a little bit too narrow. So that's my only comment. And thanks for being here. It looks great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Come on down.
Hey, I'm Greg Alexander. I live just about a mile due north of here. I had like some minor technical criticisms, and I looked at the plot on the wall there, and they've been addressed. Thank you. And I'm a little bit concerned about this kind of the side path going further west on 2nd Street because it's not as safe as it seems. If you ride that every day as a commuting cyclist, you will get hit by right-turning vehicles. I guarantee it. But I just wanted to really give an anecdote about the protected bike lane on like where Kirkwood and Adams and 3rd Street kind of come together. And that's kind of a poorly chosen project in a lot of ways that just happened that way because of when we were doing that street. But my world used to end at Kleindorfer's. And now for no stress to speak of, I can get about a half mile further west. And that has actually made a difference in my life. I'm not, when that was put in, I was like, what's the point? There's nothing further west on 3rd Street to connect to. But because of that extra quarter mile of reduced stress, I now go to Hoosier Soulmate and Roly-Poly. Saturday morning, you will catch me going one of those, getting takeout, and it's so much more convenient than it was. And before, I never would have gone to those businesses. I would have thought of those businesses as blighted strip mall. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Feel free to come on up.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Price. I've not lived here nearly as long as you all have, but we do go back and forth constantly on 2nd Street. We live down by closer to the interstate. And I was just wondering, has there ever been, and I don't know what kind of a study you do, but I know that sometimes on a street, if you're studying to do something, you've got a cord going across it to check how many cars or whatever. Have you ever done any of that in regards to the bicycles? I don't ride anymore. I wish I could, but I'm being safe. Not because I'm afraid to be out on the street, but I'm afraid to be on a bicycle anymore. So is that ever done?
So we have done traffic counts. I don't think those traffic counts pick up bicycles. Anybody know?
Okay, well,
I don't think so.
And another question in regards to that.
They do. When the city does them, they do. When NDOT does them, maybe not. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I just, wondered if you did. And is there a requirement through the state or federal money that a city gets that requires bike lanes? I've had this asked and I've wondered. So is it a requirement that some of that is included?
So yeah, for this particular project with the type of funding that it's getting, the project is basically scored based on a variety of factors. One of those factors is checking the boxes for vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians. There's other factors too that I can't think of off the top of my head. And it basically comes with a score for the project, and that's how they compare them to other projects and then award funding. So bicycle infrastructure is a factor in that, yes.
Okay, that answers that. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I just lost my information. In regards to you were talking about parking. I don't live there, so that's not an issue. But are you planning on using the hospital parking garage for parking? I mean, it's still there. You haven't torn it down.
Right.
So I'm assuming.
They've identified that to keep and incorporate in the future developments. So yes, and I believe the city owns it. So I think it will probably continue to be a publicly owned parking garage. I'm not super familiar with all the details of Hopewell, but that's my understanding.
Because I thought that way you don't have to take up it for the park. You don't have to take up a parking, make a parking area, because people could just park there, and then the way you're fixing it, they could just walk across. So that was one thing I wanted to ask. Two things which are not exactly related, but well, one of them is, because we're constantly traveling that route. And you get to maybe 2 or 3 o'clock to maybe 6, and we're talking back-to-back car traffic going across town. That's one of the major arteries going, east to west. And that is a concern because it's just absolutely horrendous, unless kids are not here. That makes some difference when the college kids are not here, but not that I would want to change that. The area at Rogers in Second, that stoplight, you're not going to move people faster to turn, so you're going to have to lengthen the time of the left-hand turn signal. You're lucky to get one person across, let alone 2, trying to turn left onto Rogers if I'm coming from the west side, which is what I'm doing. It's terrible. And the line that's supposed to be there, that you're supposed to be behind, because if somebody's coming, if there's a truck or something coming from, I don't know directions, my right, and I'm parked here and coming around me, if I'm not behind that line, they have problems. Well, they can't even see the line that's there. It needs to be repainted. So, there's some simple things. And how far does the city go? Does that road eventually become state? At what point?
I-69, when it becomes 45.
Okay. I appreciate that because I didn't know about that. The only other thing is how far down 2nd Street going toward the interstate, whatever direction that is, are you paving? Just as far as, I don't know what that's.
Walker Street.
Walker.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our western edge.
Okay.
Well, actually, I think we're resurfacing to Patterson, almost to Patterson. Yeah.
Okay. The first thing I ever noticed when we moved here, because it was in last of November, early of December in 18, it was raining. And I was not familiar with 2nd Street anyway. It was terrible to see the center line when it's raining. So if there's anything we can do, and I'm sure that's not probably just there, but anytime we work on the streets, if you can put these flashy things up or whatever they do so that you can see that center line better when it rains, it would be extremely helpful. I think this looks very nice. I'm excited for people to have that park that close. And I know people enjoy the bike lanes. And I wish I could ride on them. I can't, but I walk. But I don't see, in all honesty, and because I'm not against it, but I don't see, we've been here since 18, I don't see a lot of bicycles or a lot of walkers between the interstate and Rogers. I just don't. So it's like, to some degree, I wonder, now I understand the connection. So, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much. Come on up, come on up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Richard Lewis. I live in the Prospect Hill neighborhood, just a couple blocks from here. I've been a neighborhood representative in the public planning for the Hopewell neighborhood as that's been moving along. I've been attending the meetings for the Building Trades Park Master Plan, and it's exciting to see all of this coming together. But that also raises one question in my mind, the coordination among these three different projects, and in particular, if I understood the exchange with Aoban earlier, where newly created Fairview Street will be coming up from First Street to Second, across from what will be a south entrance to Building Trades Park. That's been planned, I think, as a major crosswalk. And in the current master plan design for Building Trades Park, it says transit shelter there, and that's part of the plan. And we're developing what will be a whole new neighborhood with, I think the aspiration is mixed levels of affordability in that housing. So that, to me, demonstrates a real need for public transportation at that spot, because that's quite a stretch from the Beeline all the way over to Walker, and that seems to be a key point where we're welcoming a new neighborhood, new residents, you know, families, children, people going this way and that. And so not only a safe crosswalk into the park, but, you know, a transit shelter that's a bus stop that's already being planned to make use of that. So I would encourage the city to, we are the customers, we the community are the customers, and I would encourage Bloomington Transit to keep that in mind, that we will have not just to think about our current customers, which I realize they need to do as they plan their stops, but the future customers, that future neighborhood that will be in place there to make use of that bus stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You got another one?
Hi, I live on 2nd Street, and I was wondering, hold on a second. I knew I'd blank. Oh yeah, power lines. Are the power lines going to be replaced on 2nd Street? Are the poles?
Yes, the poles are very old. We did reach out to Duke for initial coordination, and basically, since they're a private company, we're basically saying, hey, we're redoing the corridor. If you have planned improvements in this area, you know, please do them before we come in and do our project. So they are aware, but I have not heard if they have any plans currently to do anything.
Okay. One other thing, do I get to keep my fir tree and my bus stop?
The bus stop, I don't know. We are showing where the bus stops are currently proposed.
It's right in front of my house.
Okay. If it, I'm not exactly sure which tree, so why don't we talk afterwards and we can talk about the tree.
It's right between Howe and Euclid on the alley, and it's about 70 years old, and it's right on the corner of my property.
Okay.
And I just wondered if, you know, if it's going to be okay.
I'll have to look into it, but I will take a look and see.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, come on.
I'm John Kennedy. I actually don't live near here. I live in the southeast part of town. But I'm following up on what was just said, because the two recent projects down there, the utilities were left in the middle or blocking the path. And you have a whole bunch of utility poles going down the north side. Are they going to be removed before the building, or go underground, move them back? What's going to happen with those utility poles? I hope you're not going to do the same thing of just leaving in the middle of the path. And the second was, what plans are there for getting people from the bus stops across the bike paths to the buses? Because that's, you know, thinking about 3rd Street and the other, all sorts of designs we have to solve problems that don't necessarily do it. I hope that that will be taken care of in this design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jack Baker, a resident of McDowell Gardens neighborhood. My question is this. There's a lot of digging that's going to have to be done, a lot of street tear up to get the underground into this section. And I'm wondering, are you anticipating any full street closures for periods or partial street closures where traffic can flow a bit during the construction, and have you identified yet any possible detours?
Yeah, I don't know if you two want to speak to that. I think we are considering some full closures and some partial closures. Is that correct?
The phasing is still being figured out. Our goal is to keep both directions open as often as we can. Because of the width of the bike lane and the median area separating the bike lanes from the traffic lanes, there will be a short closure of a direction, east or west. We haven't, I don't think, determined which one makes the most sense yet. But that would be a short closure to kind of finish the construction of the median area. But there will be an official signed detour for all maintenance of traffic phases.
Yes, so when the detours are finalized, we do bring them to Board of Public Works. They have the ultimate say for road closures and detours, so that's another public meeting, public comment period for those closures. I think with that, we're going to wrap up the comment question period, and if anybody would like to hang around and talk to us one-on-one, feel free. I just want to thank everybody for coming, and again, feel free to reach out through those other channels too. I know we had a lot of kind of unresolved questions, so I'm wanting to get back with everybody who had questions, so I'll try my best to do so. But thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.